Rakib?
Well, I think that Britain is a land of failing systems, and I think that is a very serious problem. Whether it's Parliament, how police works, the judicial system,
The NHS,
civil service, the National Health Service as well.
Why do you think all our apparent main systems don't work? Because most people will say, "Oh, it needs more money." I'm one of those people who says that money needs to be spent more wisely, doesn't it?
Well, I think the money needs to be spent more efficiently, and we need to look at heightening productivity throughout our institutions. I think that if you look at the NHS, for example, I think there's almost been a sanctification of the NHS. So it's almost become a quasi-religion. And I think that if you enter that territory where you romanticize institutions. Now, of course, we should be proud of our Westminster model of multi-party parliamentary democracy. If you romanticize our systems, then you make yourself blind to very real problems. And I think that's a
really good point about the health service. And I say this a lot, and people go, I mean, yesterday we covered that story that, I mean, for God's sake, I mean, we had appalling stories yesterday because West Midlands Ambulance Service, because of lack of ambulances, announced, and I quote, that if you have a heart attack or a stroke, I still can't get over this, you should drive yourself to hospital because, you know, there aren't enough ambulances. I then start raging because I think it's utterly appalling. But one of the things about the NHS, Rakib, which I think is important, you just touched upon it, we need to stop revering these things. They're not fit for purpose. We've got a much bigger population, a much larger population. So you're absolutely honest and right. Let's talk about, please, if you don't mind, obviously what's happening in Syria. And in the middle of the show yesterday, the government, this government who promised to sort everything out and have no ideas, announced that asylum cases are on hold amid fears of jihadists returning to Britain. And my question was, I could be wrong, if they can stop asylum cases like that, seekers, why can't they have done that for other cases? Or am I missing the point here?
Well, I don't think you're missing the point at all. It shows that if it's treated as a matter of urgency, you can bring about very real change in terms of how our asylum system works. I've been arguing for some time, Jeremy, that actually the line between genuine refugee, fleeing war and persecution, and economic migrant, who is simply looking for a better life but not necessarily fleeing persecution in their homeland, that line has become increasingly blurred. And I've also argued for some time that we need to have an immigration and asylum regime which prioritises security and cohesion. And there's no doubt, of course, we can talk about our membership of the ECHR. In my view, I don't think supranational courts in foreign territory should be interfering with matters of immigration and asylum. But there's a great deal that our national government can do. And I think the tendency is they'd rather shed accountability and blame other institutions, including those in mainland Europe, when really they could take responsibility themselves.
I completely agree. And the interesting thing is whenever you have that discussion about the segregation between, as you said, a genuine refugee and somebody who wants a better life. I mean, I can sit here and pontificate almost every day. There has to be a line. I don't understand,
Absolutely.
whatever the government, I don't understand why by 2024 we are not switched on enough to have created a processing system, a unit, a place to deal with this. And of course, yes, we proved it with Ukraine, and the lefties get really angry when I say this. We did, but also there comes a point, I think, where we have to stand up and go, we're so soft, right? You can come here and end up being treated better than people who have spent 50 years paying tax. And I would never want Great Britain to lose that mantra, but I think we've swung in the opposite direction. I mean, you said about a matter of urgency. What a great phrase. Suddenly, you can stop yesterday afternoon asylum cases of Syrians, right? That's really interesting, isn't it? Apparently, we had no... I love this, and I'm not sticking up, because those far-right riots were appalling, right? Although anybody that argues with Starmer is now far-right. We had no police, we had no prison spaces, and we had no court appearances, and yet he rounded up 130 people on television, arrested them, tried them, and had them in the nick within 24 hours, which, as you said, proves that when there is a need to do something, it can be done. Too many excuses from our politicians, pal, right?
No, absolutely. And I think it's a matter of political willpower at the end of the day. You saw how the Prime Minister and the Labour government responded to the public disorder that we witnessed over the course of the summer. He adopted this model of mass arrests, swift prosecutions. Even talked about the idea of our court system being open 24 hours to ensure that those swift prosecutions took place at a large scale. And I think that it really shows if government prioritises national security and public safety, it's very much able to do so. I think that the worry is that it's very selective in terms of when it wants to adopt that position of prioritising public safety.
Completely agree. Final question to you, my friend. Delighted to have you on, Rakib. On the back of what's happened in Syria, Shamima Begum's lawyer jumped up today and said hopefully her hopes of returning to the UK will be boosted. I spoke to Tom Tugendhat, the ex-security minister, just now, who said, I found out stuff about that young lady as an adult that made my blood boil. I'll say no more. She should never be allowed back in this country, should she?
Well, I think, in my view, I think it's very clear that in looking at those recent developments in Syria, that Shamima Begum's legal team will be launching another bid. But in my view, the government had very strong grounds to revoke British citizenship on security grounds. That was a decision which was ultimately supported by our judicial system, and I think that needs to be taken seriously.
Great to have you on. Rakib, I'm sorry it's taken the team so long to get you back on. I shall nag them to get you back sooner. Thank you very much indeed. Dr. Rakib Ehsan. Good to have him on, political commentator. Can you lot be a bit more switched on and invited back, Jodie? Honestly, what are you playing at? It's an outrage. By the way, I should make an announcement. Tomorrow night, it's the Drive Time Christmas party, paid for by me, and they're all going to get absolutely bladdered, but there's a secret that none of them know that's going to happen to them.